The note was nailed to the workshop door with an iron spike, and Zelda Parrish felt the weight of it before she even touched the parchment. She had opened the shop at dawn, as always, the morning cold enough to turn her breath to mist, her fingers stiff as she fumbled with the old lock. The metalwork studio had been her brother's once, then hers by default when he died 6 months ago. She made hinges and scrollwork and garden gates now, kept the forge burning, kept the creditors at a distance, most days. But this morning the note waited, pinned through the wood like a declaration of war. Her hands shook as she pulled it free. The paper was expensive, cream-colored, stamped with a wax seal she recognized. Lord Halloway. A man who owned half the district and wanted the other half. A man her brother Caleb had borrowed from, back when he thought a single commission would save them. The words were brief and brutal. Miss Parrish, the outstanding debt of £3,000 sterling plus accrued interest is now 18 months overdue. Under provision of the Blood Debt Act of 1872, I am entitled to settle this matter through marriage arrangement. You will marry my son, Mr. Tristan Halloway, this evening at sunset in the garden of Halloway House. Failure to attend will result in seizure of your property and criminal proceedings for fraud. The ceremony will take place with or without your consent. Signed, Lord Halloway. Zelda read it twice, then a third time, her heart hammering. Marry by sunset. 5 words that turned her life into something she no longer recognized. The Blood Debt Act. She had heard of it vaguely, the way you heard of laws from another century that no one bothered to enforce anymore. It was a relic, something that tangled old vampire law with human custom back when the two societies were still learning to coexist. A debt could be paid in gold or in blood or in bond. Marriage counted as bond. No one used it anymore. Except, apparently, Lord Halloway. She crumpled the note in her fist and pressed her forehead to the doorframe, trying to think. 18 months overdue. Caleb had died before he could finish the commission, and she had been scrambling ever since, paying what she could, sending letters, begging for time. Halloway had been silent. She had thought maybe he had let it go. She had been wrong. The workshop smelled like coal and oil and old iron. It smelled like her brother. She wanted to scream. Instead, she went inside, lit the forge, and tried to work. Her hands moved through the motions, heating metal, shaping a hinge, but her mind was 1,000 miles away. Sunset. She had perhaps 10 hours. She could run, pack a bag, take the train, disappear into another city, but Halloway owned judges, owned police, owned half the damn country. He would find her. And if he seized the workshop, everything Caleb had built would be gone. She could fight it in court. But that took time, and money she did not have. And the law, cruel and ancient as it was, might actually be on his side. By midday, she was pacing the workshop, her hammer forgotten on the anvil. She had no family left, no one to turn to. Her friends were good people, but they were not rich, not powerful. They could not stand against a man like Halloway. She thought of Tristan Halloway. She had met him once, briefly, at a city function. He had been polite in the way that meant nothing, his eyes flat and disinterested. He was a man who did what his father told him, no more and no less. Marrying him would mean a life of servitude in a house where she was property, not a person. Zelda sat down on the bench by the forge and put her head in her hands. The sun crept across the floor. 2 hours to sunset. She washed her face in the basin by the back door, changed into the only decent dress she owned, a dark green thing she had worn to Caleb's funeral. It felt like a shroud. She tied her hair back, stared at herself in the cracked mirror on the wall, and wondered if this was what giving up looked like. Then she locked the workshop and walked to Halloway House. The estate sat on the edge of the city, a sprawling manor of old stone and iron gates. The garden was lit with lanterns, even though the sun had not quite set, golden light spilling across manicured hedges and gravel paths. There were people already gathered, a small crowd, witnesses. Zelda felt sick. A servant met her at the gate, a thin woman with anxious eyes. "Miss Parrish, this way, please." She was led through the garden to a stone pavilion draped in white cloth. Lord Halloway stood at the center, a tall man with silver hair and a smile that did not reach his eyes. Tristan stood beside him, looking bored. A officiant waited with a book in his hands, the kind used for binding oaths. Zelda stopped at the edge of the pavilion. Her throat was dry. "Miss Parrish." Lord Halloway's voice was smooth, satisfied. "Prompt, I appreciate that. Shall we begin?" "I want to see the contract," she said. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "I want to know exactly what I'm agreeing to." Halloway's smile thinned. "You are agreeing to settle your brother's debt through marriage bond. It is quite simple." "Then you will not mind showing me the terms." For a moment she thought he would refuse. Then he gestured, and the officiant produced a folded document. Zelda took it, scanned the words. Marriage bond, transfer of property, repayment of debt through service and loyalty. It was worse than she had imagined. She would own nothing, be nothing. She looked up. The sun was touching the horizon, the sky turning amber and red. "I need time to think," she said. "There is no time," Halloway replied. "Sunset, Miss Parrish, that was the term." "Then you are asking me to agree to something I have not fully read. I am asking you to honor your brother's debt." She wanted to throw the contract in his face, wanted to run, but the crowd was watching, and the law was the law, and she had no way out. Tristan spoke for the first time. "Father, perhaps we should sow." "Quiet," Halloway said, not looking at him, and then a voice, low and cold as winter, cut through the garden. "I invoke the right of higher claim." Every head turned. A man stood at the edge of the pavilion, and Zelda's breath caught. He was tall, impossibly so, dressed in black that seemed to drink the lantern light. His skin was pale as bone, his hair white and swept back from a face that looked carved from marble. His eyes were dark, fathomless, and fixed on Lord Halloway with an intensity that made the air feel thin. Vampire. Not just any vampire. The way he held himself, the way the crowd shrank back, the way even Halloway went still, this was someone important. "Who the hell are you?" Halloway demanded, though his voice had lost its certainty. The vampire stepped into the pavilion. He moved like water, like smoke, silent and sure. When he spoke, his voice carried across the garden without effort. "I am Matthias Yarnsaxa, king of the northern courts." He turned his gaze to Zelda, and for a moment the world narrowed to just the two of them. "And I am here to offer Miss Parrish my name." Zelda felt the ground tilt. Halloway recovered first, his face flushing red. "You cannot, this is a human matter bound by human law." "The Blood Debt Act," Matthias said, his tone almost bored, "was written to accommodate both our peoples. It allows for higher claim. If a debt is owed and a vampire of rank offers to assume it in exchange for a bond, that claim supersedes all others." He looked at the officiant. "Is this not correct?" The officiant, pale and sweating, nodded. Yes, it is. But such claims are almost never does not mean unlawful." Matthias turned back to Zelda. His expression was unreadable, but something in his eyes was careful, almost gentle. "Miss Parrish, I offer you my name, my protection, and the settling of this debt. You are under no obligation to accept. But if you do, no human law can touch you, and this matter ends tonight." Zelda could not breathe, could not think. A vampire king, offering to marry her, offering his name. Why? "Why would you do this?" she said, and her voice sounded very small. Matthias was silent for a long moment. Then, quietly, he said, "Because I have watched you for a year. Because I have seen what you have endured. Because you deserve better than this." A year. He had been watching her for a year. "I do not know you," Zelda whispered. "No," he agreed. "You do not. But I know you." It should have been terrifying. It was terrifying. But there was something in his voice, something steady and sure, that did not feel like a lie. Halloway found his voice again, angry now. "This is absurd. You cannot simply appear and claim her like some prize." "I am not claiming her," Matthias said, his tone sharpening. "I am offering. She may refuse. But you, Lord Halloway, have no say in the matter." He looked at the officiant. "Do I have the right to make this claim?" The officiant hesitated, then nodded. "You do, Your Majesty." "Then it is made." Matthias turned back to Zelda. "The choice is yours." Zelda looked at him, at the vampire king who had appeared out of nowhere, who said he had been watching her, who offered his name like it was something precious. Then she looked at Halloway, at Tristan, at the contract still clutched in her hand. She thought of the workshop, of Caleb, of the life she would lose if she said no to both of them. She thought of the way Matthias had said you deserve better than this, and the way he had not touched her, had not moved closer, had simply stood and waited for her answer. "If I accept," she said slowly, "what happens to the debt?" "It becomes mine," Matthias said. "I will settle it. £3,000 plus interest. Halloway will be paid in full." "And what do you want in return?" A pause. "Your trust," he said. "In time." It was not the answer she had expected. Halloway was shouting now, demanding the officiant refuse the claim, threatening legal action. But the crowd was murmuring, uncertain. The law was clear. Higher claim. Zelda looked at the contract in her hands, looked at the pavilion, the lanterns, the trap that had been laid for her. She thought of running, of fighting, of all the ways this could go wrong. Then she looked at Matthias, at the vampire king who had come to a human garden at sunset and offered her a way out. "I accept," she said. The garden went silent. Matthias inclined his head, a gesture so small and so formal it felt like a vow. "Then it is done." Halloway lunged forward, but Matthias raised one hand and the man froze, his face going white. It was not a threat. It was simply presence, the weight of power so old and so vast that even a fool knew not to push further. "You will be paid," Matthias said, his voice soft and deadly. "By week's end. Consider this matter closed." He turned to Zelda and offered his hand. She hesitated, then took it. His skin was cool, his grip firm but careful. "Come," he said. "We are leaving." She let him lead her out of the garden, past the crowd, past Halloway's furious shouting, past the gates and into the street. A car waited, black and sleek, and Matthias opened the door for her. She climbed inside, her heart still racing, and he followed. The driver pulled away without a word. Zelda sat in the dark interior, her hands shaking, her mind a riot of questions. Matthias sat across from her, his face shadowed, but his eyes still fixed on her. "You have questions," he said. It was not a question. "1,000 of them," Zelda said. Her voice was hoarse. "Ask." She did not know where to start. "Why?" "I told you. I have been watching you." "That is not an answer." He was quiet for a moment. "I came to this city a year ago. There was a matter of territory, a dispute between courts that required my attention. I saw you one evening leaving your workshop. You were carrying iron rods, far too many for one person, and you would not ask for help. You were so stubborn, so determined." He paused. "I found myself returning, watching, making sure no harm came to you." Zelda stared at him. "That is unusual," he said. "I know. For my kind, attachment is rare. But I could not look away." "You never spoke to me." "No." "Why not?" He looked out the window, his jaw tight. "I am not good with words. I am a king. I give orders, I make laws, I enforce them. But words of a different kind, those do not come easily." He looked back at her. "Offering my name tonight was the largest thing I have ever said." There was something raw in his voice, something that made Zelda's throat ache. "You did not have to do that," she said quietly. "Yes," he said. "I did." The car turned down a narrow street away from the city center. Zelda watched the buildings slide past, her mind still spinning. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Somewhere safe. My estate. You will have your own rooms, your own space. I will not impose on you." "But we are—" She could not say the word. Married, bonded, whatever it was. "Bound by law," Matthias said. "Yes. But I will not demand anything of you, Zelda. I offered you my name because I wanted to give you a choice, not to take one away." Zelda looked at him. At the vampire king who said he was not good with words, but who had just spoken more gently than anyone had in months. "What did it cost you?" she asked. "You said you made the claim, but I saw your face. It cost you something." Matthias smiled, a faint, tired thing. "A favor owed to an elder of the southern courts. Valdric. He is old, powerful, and he does not forgive easily. I went to him this morning and invoked a debt he owed me, asked him to witness the claim and make it legal under vampire law. He agreed, but now I owe him in return." "What kind of favor?" "I do not know yet. He will call it in when he chooses." Zelda felt something twist in her chest. "You gave up a favor from an elder vampire, for me." Yes. You do not even know me. I know enough, he said simply. The car pulled through a set of iron gates and up a long drive. The estate was enormous, all dark stone and tall windows, lit from within by soft amber light. It looked like something from another century, beautiful and imposing. The driver stopped at the entrance, and Matthias stepped out, then offered Zelda his hand again. She took it and let him help her from the car. Inside, the house was warm despite its size. A woman appeared, older, with kind eyes and a crisp uniform. Matthias introduced her as Anwen, the head of his household. Anwen, this is Zelda Parrish. She will be staying here. Please prepare the east wing for her. Anwen's eyebrows rose, but she simply nodded. Of course, Your Majesty, right away. Matthias turned to Zelda. You should rest. It has been a long day. I cannot rest, Zelda said, her voice sharper than she intended. I cannot just pretend this is normal. You paid for me. You assumed my brother's debt, and now I'm bound to you, and I do not understand why. I did not pay for you, Matthias said, his tone firm but not unkind. I paid a debt that should never have been yours to carry. There is a difference. Is there? Zelda demanded. Because it feels the same. Matthias looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, You are angry. That is understandable. But you are not property, Zelda, not to me, not to anyone. Then what am I? You're someone I wanted to protect. The words hung between them, quiet and strange and true. Zelda felt her anger drain away, replaced by exhaustion. She was tired, so tired. I do not know how to do this, she said quietly. Neither do I, Matthias admitted, but we will learn. Anwen returned and led Zelda upstairs to a suite of rooms that were larger than her entire workshop. There was a bedroom with a four-poster bed, a sitting room with a fireplace, a bathroom with a tub the size of a pond. It was overwhelming. If you need anything, miss, just ring, Anwen said, gesturing to a cord by the bed. His Majesty wants you to be comfortable. Thank you, Zelda said, because she did not know what else to say. When Anwen left, Zelda sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the floor. She was in a vampire's house, bound to a vampire king, a man she did not know, who said he had been watching her for a year. She should be terrified. But when she thought of Matthias, of the way he had stood in that garden and offered his name, of the way he had said you deserve better, she felt something else, something she could not name yet. She lay back on the bed and closed her eyes. Tomorrow, she would think. Tomorrow she would figure out what happened next. Tonight, she just needed to survive. Zelda woke to sunlight streaming through the tall windows and the smell of fresh bread drifting up from somewhere below. For a moment she did not remember where she was. Then it all came rushing back. The note, the garden, Matthias. She sat up, her body stiff from tension, and looked around the room. Someone had left a tray on the table by the window. Tea, toast, eggs, fruit. Her stomach growled. She ate slowly, trying to settle herself. The room was beautiful in the daylight, all rich wood and soft colors, but it still felt like a cage. A gilded one, but a cage nonetheless. There was a knock at the door. Come in, Zelda called. Anwen entered, carrying a folded bundle of clothing. Good morning, miss. I thought you might want something more comfortable to wear. These should fit. Zelda took the bundle. Trousers, a blouse, a soft sweater, practical, not ornamental. Thank you, she said, surprised. His Majesty thought you might prefer something you could move in, Anwen said. He mentioned you work with metal. That gave Zelda pause. He had remembered, noticed. Is he here? Zelda asked. He's in his study. He asked if you would join him when you were ready. Zelda nodded. After Anwen left, she changed into the clothes, which fit better than she expected, and made her way downstairs. The house was a maze of corridors and staircases, but eventually she found the study, a large room lined with books and maps. Matthias stood by the window, looking out at the grounds. He turned when she entered. You slept well? He asked. Well enough. He gestured to a chair by the desk. Sit, please, we need to talk. Zelda sat, her hands folded in her lap. Matthias remained standing, his posture stiff like he was bracing himself. The debt, he said. £3,000 plus 18 months of interest. It comes to just over 4,000. I will deliver payment to Halloway by the end of the week. That is a lot of money. It is nothing, Matthias said dismissively. I have resources. This is not a burden. It is to me, Zelda said. I do not like owing debts. You owe me nothing. I owe you 4,000 pounds, she said flatly. And apparently my freedom. Matthias's jaw tightened. You are not indebted to me, Zelda. The bond we have it is legal, yes, but I do not intend to enforce it as anything other than protection. You are free to live as you choose. Except I am bound to you, Zelda said. And everyone knows it. I cannot go back to my workshop. I cannot live my life as it was. Why not? That stopped her. What? Why can you not return to your workshop? Matthias asked. I did not take it from you. It is still yours. But Zelda faltered. You assumed I would confine you here, Matthias said. I will not. If you want to continue your work, do so. If you want to leave, leave. I will not stop you. Zelda stared at him. Then what is the point of the bond? The point, Matthias said slowly, is that it keeps you safe. Halloway cannot touch you now. No one can. You are under my protection, and that means something in this world. But what do you get out of it? Zelda demanded. Why would you do this if you gain nothing? Matthias looked at her, and for a moment his expression was unguarded, almost vulnerable. I gain the knowledge that you are safe. That is enough. Zelda did not know what to say to that. Matthias turned back to the window. There is something else. The debt, it was not just about money. Halloway used the Blood Debt Act because he wanted leverage. He wanted control. If we simply pay the debt and walk away, he will claim you were bought, that I stole you. It will undermine your honor. I do not care what Halloway thinks. Perhaps not, but you care about your brother's name, and your own. Zelda went still. He was right. So what do we do? She asked. We settle the true debt, Matthias said. Caleb owed Halloway money because he could not complete a commission. What was the commission? Ironwork, Zelda said. Gates for Halloway's estate, ornamental, detailed. Caleb was halfway through when he died. Can you finish it? Zelda blinked. Yes, I could, but it would take time. How much time? A month, maybe 6 weeks? Then that is what we will do, Matthias said. We will pay Halloway the money owed, and you will complete the commission. That way, the debt is settled in full. Honorably. Zelda felt something loosen in her chest. You would let me do that. Let you? Matthias turned to look at her, his expression incredulous. Zelda, I am not your jailer. If you want to finish your brother's work, then finish it. I will support you however I can. She wanted to cry, or laugh, or both. Thank you, she said quietly. Matthias nodded, then hesitated. There is one more thing. The elder, I owe a favor to Valdric. He will want to meet you, to confirm the bond is legitimate. When? Soon, perhaps in a few days. He's old-fashioned. He will want to see that this was done properly. And if he decides it was not? Then he will cause trouble, Matthias said bluntly. But I will handle it. Zelda studied him. The vampire king, standing in the sunlight that came through the window, his face carved from marble and shadow. He was beautiful, in the way that dangerous things were beautiful. But there was something else there, too, something careful. You are not what I expected, she said. What did you expect? I do not know. Someone colder, maybe. More commanding. I am commanding, Matthias said, a faint trace of amusement in his voice. You simply have not seen me in my court yet. Will I? If you wish. Zelda stood. I should go back to the workshop. I need to see what materials I have, what I will need to finish the gates. I will have a car ready for you, Matthias said, and a guard if you would like one. I do not need a guard. Humor me, Matthias said. Halloway is not happy. I would rather know you are safe. Zelda wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes stopped her. It was not control, it was worry. Fine, she said. One guard, but they stay outside. Matthias smiled, just a little. Agreed. The workshop felt smaller than Zelda remembered, but it was still hers. She stood in the doorway, breathing in the smell of coal and iron, and felt something settle inside her. The guard Matthias had sent a quiet man named Garrett, who looked human, but moved with the stillness of a vampire, waited by the door as promised. Zelda ignored him and went to work. The gates were half finished, leaning against the far wall. Caleb's design, intricate scrollwork and vines, leaves that looked like they might blow in the wind. It was beautiful. It was also incomplete. Zelda spent the morning taking inventory. She had enough iron, but she would need more tools, more time. She made a list, her hands moving on autopilot, her mind somewhere else. She kept thinking about Matthias, about the way he had said, "I have been watching you," about the favor he had given up. She did not know what to make of him. He was a vampire, a king, someone who should be cruel or cold or both. But he had offered her a choice. He had let her return to her workshop. He had not touched her, had not demanded anything. It did not make sense. By midday, she was filthy, her hands black with soot, her hair falling out of its tie. She stepped outside for air and found Garrett still standing by the door, patient as stone. "Do you ever get bored?" she asked. "No, miss," Garrett said. "Do you ever get tired?" "Not often." Zelda shook her head. "This is going to be a long 6 weeks." Garrett almost smiled. "His Majesty is worried about you." "I noticed." "He does not worry often. It is unusual." Zelda looked at him. "How long have you worked for him?" 70 years, give or take." 70 years. Zelda could not imagine living that long, let alone serving someone for that long. "What is he like?" she asked. "As a king?" Garrett considered. "Fair, just... he does not tolerate cruelty or dishonesty. He is hard, but he's not heartless." "And as a person?" "Lonely," Garrett said quietly. "He carries the weight of our people, and it is a heavy thing." Zelda thought about that as she went back inside. A lonely king who had spent a year watching her because he did not know how to speak. She worked until sunset, then let Garrett drive her back to the estate. Matthias was waiting in the entrance hall, his face carefully neutral. "How was your day?" he asked. "Productive," Zelda said. "I have a plan for the gates. It will take time, but I can finish them." "Good." They stood there for a moment, awkward and uncertain. Then Zelda said, "Do you eat dinner?" Or, "I do not eat food," Matthias said, "but I will sit with you if you would like company." "I would," Zelda said, surprising herself. They ate, or rather, she ate, and he watched in a small dining room that felt less formal than the rest of the house. Anwin had prepared roast chicken and vegetables, and Zelda ate with the single-minded focus of someone who had forgotten lunch. Matthias sat across from her, a glass of dark liquid in his hand. Blood, Zelda assumed, though he did not comment on it. "Tell me about your brother," he said. Zelda looked up, startled. "Why?" "Because he mattered to you, and because I want to know." So she told him. About Caleb, who had been 6 years older and had taught her everything about metalwork, who had been kind and reckless and had died in an accident at the forge, a fire that got out of control, who had left her a debt she could not pay and a workshop she could not leave. Matthias listened without interrupting, his dark eyes fixed on her face. "He would have liked you," Zelda said when she finished. "He always said the best people were the ones who did not need to prove themselves." "I am not sure I qualify," Matthias said dryly. "You offered your name to a stranger. I think that counts." They talked late into the night, about small things and large ones, about the city and the courts and the strange world where vampires and humans lived side by side. Matthias was careful with his words, but when he spoke, he meant them. Zelda found herself relaxing, laughing at something he said, and then catching herself and wondering when she had started to feel comfortable. When she finally went to bed, she lay awake for a long time, thinking about the vampire king who was not what she had expected. The next few days fell into a rhythm. Zelda spent her mornings at the workshop, her afternoons designing and planning, her evenings at the estate with Matthias. They ate dinner together, or she ate, and he kept her company, and they talked. About everything and nothing. She learned that he had been king for over 200 years, that he had never wanted the title but had taken it because someone had to, that he read philosophy and history and poetry, though he claimed not to understand most of it. "I am a soldier," he said one evening. "I know strategy and war. Words on a page, those are harder." "You seem to manage fine when you are talking to me," Zelda said. "That is different." "How?" He looked at her, and there was something in his eyes that made her breath catch. "Because it is you." Zelda did not know what to say to that. On the 4th day, Matthias came to the workshop. Zelda looked up from the forge, startled, and found him standing in the doorway, looking entirely out of place in his fine black coat and polished boots. "You came to see me work?" she asked. "I was curious," he said. "May I?" She gestured for him to enter. He moved carefully, his eyes taking in the tools, the half-finished gates, the organized chaos of the space. "This is impressive," he said. "It is a mess." "It is yours." Zelda watched him run his fingers over one of the iron vines, his touch light and careful. "Do you work with metal?" she asked. "No, I work with laws and politics, much less elegant. And much less tangible." "True." He stayed for an hour, asking questions, watching her work. He did not get in the way, did not try to help. He just observed, like he was memorizing every detail. When he finally left, Zelda realized she was smiling. Valdric arrived on the 5th day. Zelda was in the sitting room, sketching designs for the gates, when Anwen appeared at the door, her face tight with worry. "Miss Parrish, Elder Valdric is here. His Majesty requests your presence in the drawing room." Zelda's stomach dropped. "Now?" "Yes, miss." She followed Anwen downstairs, her heart pounding. The drawing room was one of the grandest in the house, all dark wood and heavy curtains. Matthias stood by the fireplace, his posture rigid, and beside him, Valdric was older than old. He looked ancient, his white hair falling past his shoulders, his skin pale as death. His eyes were gold, sharp and unblinking, and when he looked at Zelda, she felt like he was peeling her apart. "So," Valdric said, his voice smooth and cold, "this is the human who required a higher claim." "This is Zelda Parrish," Matthias said. "Yes." His tone was formal, but there was an edge to it. "My bonded." Valdric's lips curved into something that might have been a smile. "You're bonded. How quaint." He turned his attention to Zelda. "Come closer, girl. Let me see you." Zelda forced herself to move forward. She stopped a few feet from Valdric, her hands clenched at her sides. Valdric studied her for a long moment. "You are plain," he said. "Unremarkable. What does a king see in you, I wonder?" "That is not your concern," Matthias said sharply. "Is it not?" Valdric turned to him. "You invoked a debt I owed you, Matthias. You asked me to witness a higher claim and make it legal. I did. But now I want to know, was it worth it?" "It was." "Why?" Matthias did not answer immediately. Then, quietly, he said, "Because she is worth it." Valdric laughed, a cold, brittle sound. "Sentiment. How very human of you." Zelda had had enough. "If you have something to say it. Otherwise, leave." The room went silent. Valdric's eyes narrowed. "Bold. For someone so small." "I am not small," Zelda said, "and I'm not afraid of you." That was a lie, but she said it anyway. Valdric looked at Matthias, then back at Zelda. "Perhaps I see it now. A spark. Very well." He turned to Matthias. "The bond is legitimate. I will not contest it, but you owe me, Matthias, and I will collect." I know," Matthias said. "Good." Valdric inclined his head, a gesture that felt more like a threat than a courtesy. "I will be in touch." And then he was gone, moving faster than Zelda's eyes could follow. She let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. Matthias crossed the room to her, his face tight with worry. "Are you all right?" he asked. "I am fine," Zelda said, though her hands were shaking. "He is intense." "He is dangerous," Matthias said. "You should not have challenged him." "I was not going to stand there and let him insult me." Matthias looked at her, and then, to her surprise, he smiled. A real smile, warm and fleeting. "No, you would not." "What does he want from you?" Zelda asked. "The favor." "I do not know yet, but I will handle it." "You keep saying that." "Because it is true." Zelda shook her head. "You gave up too much for me." "I gave up what I was willing to lose," Matthias said. "Do not carry that weight, Zelda. It is mine." She wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes stopped her. The weeks passed. Zelda worked on the gates, and they began to take shape, the iron bending under her hands, the design coming to life. Matthias visited often, watching her work, asking questions, bringing her tea when she forgot to eat. They were growing closer. Zelda could feel it, the way conversations became easier, the way silences became comfortable. She caught herself looking for him in the evenings, waiting for the sound of his footsteps in the hall. And Matthias was softer around her now. He smiled more. He stood closer. He looked at her like she was something precious, something he was afraid to break. One evening, 3 weeks into the work, Zelda was in the courtyard of the estate, sitting by a fountain and sketching. Matthias found her there, his coat thrown over one arm, his hair slightly disheveled. "You look tired," she said. "Court matters," he said, sitting beside her. "A dispute over territory, tedious." "Do you enjoy being king?" "No," the answer was immediate, "but I am good at it, and someone has to be." "That's a lonely way to live." "It is," Matthias agreed. He looked at her, and his expression was unguarded. "Less so lately." Zelda's heart skipped. "Matthias." "I know," he said quietly. "I know this is strange. I know I'm not easy to be around, but He stopped, his jaw tight, like the words were fighting him. "I care about you, Zelda, more than I should, more than I know how to say." Zelda set down her sketchbook. "You have been saying it, every day, in 100 small ways." "Have I?" "Yes." They sat in silence, the fountain murmuring behind them. Then Matthias said, "When the gates are finished and the debt is settled, you do not have to stay. The bond is legal, but I will not enforce it. If you want to leave, I will not stop you." "What if I do not want to leave?" Zelda asked. Matthias looked at her, his eyes wide. "Then I would—" He stopped, his voice catching. "I would be grateful." Zelda reached out and took his hand. His skin was cool, but his grip was steady. "I do not know what this is," she said, "but I do not want to walk away from it." "Neither do I," Matthias said. They sat together in the courtyard, hands linked, and Zelda felt something settle inside her, something that felt like hope. The gates were finished on a cold morning in late autumn. Zelda stepped back, her hands aching, her body exhausted, and looked at what she had made. The iron vines twisted and curled, the leaves so delicate they looked real. It was the best work she had ever done. Matthias stood beside her, his expression awed. "Zelda, it is done," she said. "It is extraordinary." She smiled, tired but satisfied. "Caleb would be proud." "So am I," Matthias said. They had the gates delivered to Halloway House the next day, along with the payment in full. Halloway accepted both without comment, his face sour. The debt was settled. Honorably. That evening, Matthias took Zelda to the courtyard where they had sat weeks before. Lanterns had been lit, casting golden light across the stones, and the fountain sparkled in the glow. "I wanted to give you something," Matthias said. He held out a small box, and when Zelda opened it, she found a ring inside. Simple, elegant, a band of silver with a single dark stone. "What is this?" she asked. "A choice," Matthias said. "The bond we have it is legal, but it is not complete. In my world, a bond is not truly sealed until both parties choose it." Freely. He knelt, and Zelda's breath caught. "Zelda Parrish, I am not good with words. I am hard and cold, and I do not know how to be anything else. But you make me want to try. You make me want to be better. Will you stay with me? Not because the law says you must, but because you want to?" Zelda felt tears prick her eyes. "Yes," she said. "Yes." Matthias slipped the ring onto her finger, his hands careful, and then he stood. He cupped her face in his hands, his touch gentle, and kissed her. It was slow and sweet and full of all the things he could not say. When they pulled apart, Zelda was smiling. "I have a question." "Anything. Will you turn me? One day?" Matthias went very still. It is dangerous, painful. Not everyone survives." "I know, but I want it. I want to stay with you. For more than a human lifetime." "Zelda." "Not now," she said quickly. "But one day, when I'm ready, will you?" Matthias looked at her, his eyes dark and full of something she could not name. "If that is what you want, yes." "Good." They stood together in the lantern-lit courtyard, and Zelda felt the future stretch out before them. Uncertain, yes, but theirs. Months passed. Zelda moved fully into the estate, though she kept the workshop and continued her work. She learned about Matthias's world, the courts and the politics, the old laws and the new ones. She met other vampires, some kind, some wary, all curious about the human who had captured their king's heart. And Matthias softened. Not entirely, not in the ways that mattered for ruling. But with her he was gentle. He laughed more. He touched her more, small gestures of affection that felt monumental coming from him. One evening, nearly a year after the night in the garden, Zelda found him in his study, staring at a letter. "What is it?" she asked. "Valdric," Matthias said. His voice was tight. "He is calling in the favor." Zelda's stomach dropped. "What does he want?" "He wants me to mediate a dispute in the southern courts, a matter of succession. It will take weeks, maybe months, and it will be dangerous. Then I'm coming with you." "No," the word was sharp. "Zelda, the southern courts they are not like here. They are older, crueler. I cannot protect you there." "Then teach me how to protect myself," Zelda said. "I am not staying behind, Matthias." They argued, but in the end, Matthias relented, because he always did, where she was concerned. The southern courts were everything Matthias had warned, and more. Dark, labyrinthine, full of vampires who looked at Zelda like she was prey. But Matthias never left her side, and slowly, grudgingly, the others began to respect her. She was the human who had stood up to Valdric, the human who had claimed a king. The mediation was brutal, weeks of negotiation and veiled threats, but Matthias handled it with the same cold precision he brought to everything. And when it was over, Valdric nodded, satisfied. "The debt is paid," he said. "You are free, Matthias." Thank you," Matthias said, though his tone was anything but grateful. They returned home in the early spring. The estate felt like a sanctuary after the southern courts, and Zelda stood in the courtyard, breathing in the familiar air, and felt something click into place. "I'm ready," she said. Matthias turned to her. "Ready for what?" "To turn. I want to do it now." Matthias went pale, which was saying something. "Zelda, I have thought about it. I'm sure I want this life. With you. For as long as we have." He stared at her, his expression torn between hope and fear. "It will hurt. I know. You might not survive. I will." "How can you be sure?" "Because I have you," Zelda said simply. Matthias closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, they were wet. "If I lose you." "You will not." He kissed her then, hard and desperate, and when he pulled away, he said, "Tonight. I will do it tonight." The turning was agony. Matthias warned her, but nothing could have prepared her for the feeling of her body remaking itself, her heart slowing, her senses sharpening. She screamed, and Matthias held her through it, his voice a steady murmur in her ear. "Stay with me. Stay with me. You are strong. You can do this." And she did. When she woke, the world was different, brighter, sharper, more. She could hear the fountain in the courtyard, the rustle of leaves outside, the beat of Matthias's heart. She looked at him, and he was beautiful in a way she had never seen before. "Zelda," he said, his voice breaking, "you are here. You are alive." "I told you I would be," she said, and her voice was different too, stronger. He kissed her, and it was like the first time and nothing like it. She kissed him back, and for the first time she felt like they were equals. Two immortals bound by choice. They spent the next weeks adjusting. Zelda learned to control her new strength, her new senses. Matthias taught her how to feed, how to move through the world as a vampire. It was strange and exhilarating and terrifying all at once. But they did it together. One evening, months after the turning, they stood in the courtyard again. The lanterns were lit, the fountain murmuring, and Zelda leaned against Matthias, his arm around her waist. "Do you regret it?" he asked quietly. "Choosing this life?" "Never," Zelda said. "Do you regret offering me your name?" "Not for a moment." She turned to look at him, and he was smiling, a real, unguarded smile. She kissed him, slow and sweet, and felt the future stretch out before them, endless and bright and theirs. They would face challenges, she knew, the courts, the politics, the dangers of their world, but they would face them together. And that was enough. Years passed, then decades. Zelda became known in the courts as the queen who was human, and she wore the title with pride. She continued her metalwork, creating pieces that became famous among both vampires and humans. Matthias ruled with the same cold precision, but those who knew him saw the way he softened when Zelda entered a room. They traveled the world, seeing places Zelda had only dreamed of. They faced enemies and made allies. They built a life that was strange and beautiful and entirely their own. And on quiet evenings, They would sit in the courtyard, lanterns glowing, fountain murmuring, and Matthias would take her hand and say, "I am grateful." "For what?" Zelda would ask, though she knew the answer. "For you, for this, for every moment." And Zelda would smile and say, "So am I." They had eternity, and they would spend it together. One night, a century after the turning, Zelda stood in the workshop now updated, but still hers, and looked at the gates she had made so long ago. They had been moved to the estate, installed at the entrance, and they still gleamed in the moonlight. Matthias found her there, as he always did. "Thinking?" he asked. "Remembering," Zelda said. "The day you came to the garden, the day you offered me your name." "The best decision I ever made," Matthias said. "Mine too." He wrapped his arms around her, and they stood together in the quiet night, two immortals who had found each other against all odds. And as the moon rose and the stars wheeled overhead, Zelda thought of the note that had ordered her to marry by sunset, the note that had changed her life. She had married by sunset, just not the man they had intended, and she had never been happier.